When is a documentary about hummingbirds more than just another educational nature documentary? In the case of Sally Aitken's new movie, Every Little Thing, we discover that small things are very big things, and you'll be more than a little surprised. Hummingbird wings beat 50 times per second, but with astounding photography, they float like gossamer on screen, captured like small magic sprites. Terry Masear, the film's subject, is a person who runs a Hummingbird Rescue, and she too is magical and surprising. No bigger than the tip of your little finger, these wonderful birds become bigger than life as we discover Terry's care, attention, wisdom, and affection for these little beings. It's a film that will stay with you long after you leave the theater. Every little thing is big and wide and will leave you thinking about how small acts of kindness to the tiniest of creatures has giant impact. Join us for a discussion with the film's director, Sally Aitken, right now on Inside the Arthouse. Hi, my name is Raphael Sparge, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Arthouse. We are in remarkable times, and we are doing this as one of our first remote episodes with Sally Aitken, who is the director of a beautiful film called Every Little Thing. Sally is you're on your press tour, I guess. You're in a hotel, traveling between cities.
I'm migrating, we could say, yeah.
Right, and you live in Australia.
I do.
Yeah,
Sydney,
wonderful.
Australia.
So, Sally, I saw this film, and I started watching it, and I thought, oh, this is going to be sort of a charming kind of slight movie about environmentally related topics, and I thought it's nice. And then I had no preparation for what actually happened, whereas that it turned and went into something entirely else. I wonder what your journey with people's response to the film so far. I mean, it's done incredibly well, obviously. The New York Times just gave it a great review, but I had that initial response. Has that been the case for anyone else?
It's very consistent. And also let me hasten to add, in case anyone is concerned, it doesn't turn into a zombie film. That's not the kind of turn we're talking about.
Right.
It's been an amazing response to the film, a remarkable response to the film. I think, as you say, New York Times, Hollywood Reporter, IndieWire, Variety, I mean, you name it. And I think perhaps one of the things that is consistent is people are having a very, very emotional response to the film. Yes. And this is even before the situation in Los Angeles at the moment with these terrible wildfires. But I think it's something to do with the fact, and this is a bit of a spoiler alert, but the film is billed as a film about hummingbirds. And of course, it is a film about hummingbirds. They shimmer through the film consistently. But it's really a film about us. It's really a film about humanity. And I think one of the things, particularly now at this time, is it's a film that sort of shines a light on kindness and on compassion and the goodness that's so inherent in our humanity if we allow it to let out. And I think people feel incredibly emotional in watching the film because there is that reminder there. And we are so beset with so many other stories of politics and war and conflict. And while all of those things are true in the human experience, kindness, goodness, empathy, compassion, they're also true. And actually, if we pay a little more attention to those things, the former may not be so prevalent. Anyway, I think that's right. Why people are responding.
I mean, 100%. I mean, I love the film, and I'm obviously joined by a lot of other people who've seen it and feel the same. And I I don't mean to say that it's slight, to start with, that it in any way as a way to dismiss the film, because it's great. It's just that it's so surprising, the turn.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my question to you, someone handed you a book about the subject,
Right.
Terry Masear, who is the subject of the doc. She runs a kind of a hummingbird ICU, essentially,
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly.
And you read this book and you said, I want to do a doc about this. Yep. But did you have any idea that all this other stuff? First of all, I'm curious what drew you to the doc, what drew you to this sort of subject.
Yeah.
And then did you have any idea what was in store for you as you began to kind of take this trip with her?
So you're completely correct. I was handed actually not the book initially, but a review, a very positive review of Terry's memoir, which is called Fastest Things on Wings. And it details her work as you say, a hummingbird rescuer. And my initial response was, how much trouble do hummingbirds get into that they need 24/7? I thought, that's really curious and that's quirky. And what was interesting is the producer, who was the one who handed me the review, Bettina Dalton, and I had worked together 3 years previously on a film called Playing with Sharks. And I hasten to add, I'm actually not what a quote unquote natural history filmmaker. I like telling stories about humanity and emotional stories and stories of surprise and true crime and all sorts of things. But we'd had a very, very, very good response to Playing with Sharks. It was enormously successful. It's the story of another remarkable woman called Valerie Taylor, who is really like the Jane Goodall of sharks, and shot all the live shark footage for Jaws, and goes through an incredible life epiphany of hunter to conservationist. And she's still out there. She's 89 years old now, still fighting for sharks, still glamorous. And she has a 50-year archive. Anyway, Bettina had been sending me various ideas, and so she sent me this review of Terry's book. And my initial response, as I said jokingly, was, this is a quirky story, but I wasn't sure. Unlike Valerie's story, it didn't have 50 years of archive. It didn't have Steven Spielberg. I thought, is this slight? Is it too little? What is this? And it wasn't really until reading the book, and the book is written actually not dissimilarly to how Terry speaks, which is very philosophically and metaphorically. And I was completely enchanted. I come originally from New Zealand. Our birds are flightless. We don't have hummingbirds there. We have very beautiful flying birds as well, but our famous bird is the flightless one, the kiwi. And I just thought, wow, this is an extraordinary creature, the smallest birds in the world, set in this remarkable, most storied city in the world, Los Angeles. And I thought, what an amazing juxtaposition, this tiny little connector of humanity, and arguably one of the most diverse, most mythologized cities. And it was a story I'd never seen of Los Angeles. We've seen Chinatown and La La Land and Mulholland Drive. We've seen all these other stories of LA, but not this lens. And hummingbirds are ubiquitous. If anyone lives in Los Angeles, they know they're in their backyards. Yes. They're flying down the streets. They're on the corners in the bougainvillea. They are everywhere. And they move like fairies. And so there was this incredible visual opportunity. But really, the substance of what you're talking about, which is how the film turns and it becomes it's a story that becomes a meditation, I suppose, on our coexistence with other species and also with ourselves and each other. And it's a hopeful story in many ways. And so all of that revealed itself, interestingly enough, when Bettina and Terry first connected. They realized they had a shared trauma. And we realized increasingly there was an opportunity in this remarkable woman who is quite unlike any other screen character that you'll meet, and this enchanting, amazing work that she does with birds that are literally this tiny, that there was actually this huge story.
Let's just show a clip here from Every Little Thing.
It's so tiny. You think, wow, that nest will never accommodate grown birds. But that nest expands with the growing birds. It's pretty amazing. And then, of course, they decorate the outside with paint chips, so I always know what color people's houses are.
It's hard to understate how incredible photography of the birds are. And I went to a screening in New York, and your DP was there, and she was talking about how, I mean, you were there as well, obviously,
right.
But when she spoke, she talked about how she did this. Could you tell me how you found her and how you collaborated and what this process was like to kind of get this kind of imagery?
So our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wildlife cinematographer, Anne Johnson-Prum, is an expert, as it turns out, in photographing hummingbirds. She shoots lots of things, but she had really been an early adopter of the Phantom Flex camera, which is a camera that shoots at incredibly high frame rate, and was absolutely the right person for the job. We actually have 3 cinematographers, and the film is very layered between observational, archival, and these glorious, what we almost call haikus, wildlife scenes, and shot all the wildlife scenes and shot at about 600 frames a sec. So it slows the image right down, and it means you can enter this sort of otherworldly space. And we really, from the beginning, as I said, I knew that there was a visual opportunity here to capture something of the magic, or to try to reach for something of the magic of the hummingbirds. Yeah. And their wings move in a figure 8 pattern, which is actually one of the reasons that they're so aeronautically amazing. They can fly in literally every direction, which is actually unlike any other bird species. Backwards, even upside down, all the rest of it. So the photography, the cinematography in the movie is extraordinary. And our lovely editor, Tanya Nimi, was also very honoring of that intention, which was to have these moments of transcendence, I suppose, to allow us to almost remind ourselves that we only see the world in one way. We're limited by our own sensory toolkit, and other species see the world in other ways. And isn't the world an amazing place when we remember that, because we are part of this incredible matrix called life. So it's a joy, the photography in the film. Yeah. I wonder if you could talk about your relationship to Terry, because sure. When I'm a filmmaker as well, I know how when you designate someone that you want to essentially kind of make the center of your world, in this case, it becomes a relationship, and you really kind of there's an ebb and flow with how you begin to kind of find one another, and obviously as you discover one another,
What was the process of you getting to know one another, and then what happened, I guess?
So Terry and we connect because we don't live full time in America. Terry and we connected mostly on the telephone and also on platforms like this, Zoom and other platforms like that. And it's true, I think, that every documentary or every film is an adventure, but documentaries particularly, you are really embarking on the unknown, even if you have a set of ideas that you're hoping to explore, even if you have a sense of how you might film things or where you might film things or when you might film things. They are a contract in a way, and I don't mean something written on paper. I mean they are deeply relational films. They rely on trust between the participant in front of the camera and the participants behind the camera, the
100%.
crew and the director. And so as you might see in the film, you will realize that Terry is not a person that lends to trust easily. But I think for me anyway, I find I don't have the answers when I go about directing. That doesn't mean I don't have ideas of what I want to do and a vision that I want to execute. It just means that I like to be very transparent about the fact that we are embarked on this reciprocal journey of faith and trust and hope and adventure. I think it's really important to say that because I believe it's exciting to shine a light somewhere where, the stories haven't been told. That's the absolute beauty of documentary. You have this incredible privilege to walk in someone else's shoes or to see the world in a different way. So anyway, I find that I share that with people, and the more that you are vulnerable with each other and say what your intention is, I find, for me anyway, the more that trust relationship builds. And in fact, in Terry's book, she deals with the ins and outs of the rehab, but she doesn't talk about her personal story. And that became revealed only when we were filming. And the personal story is very, I suppose, delicately, the whole film is delicate. They're hummingbirds. You can't freight them too much, but her personal story, the question of why, is really woven into the fabric of the unfolding story, and not in a didactic way, but in a way that, again, invites invitation to imagine. And Terry had not explained to me any of her personal story when we embarked on the filming. So I think that became very important for the film, but it was also testament to the process.
100%. And obviously then the trust that she sort of struck with you so that she felt comfortable enough to be able to share. And obviously that's it shines such sort of profound light on everything in a way that happens. Is there this is a funny question, but I guess, do you feel somehow that you were changed or affected in this process? What happened to you in this journey with her?
That's a great question. Of course, I think all of the work you do changes you, but profoundly this one, in so many ways, actually. So as we alluded to, Terry's personal story is one of really its trauma and resilience, and I think that there's so many messages in how we can find those moments of strength and hope and resilience within ourselves. So I think it was a reminder to me and a sharing again of the human experience. So those things always change you, obviously I know a lot more about hummingbirds than I did when I started. And also I know a lot more about Los Angeles, but really it's the sort of the under the skin stuff that happens. And I have a friend who was going through treatment at the time of making this. And I think all of these things work in very subconscious ways. And I think that at the time, perhaps I was needing that reminder. So I went looking for it in some very subconscious way and found it very much in this story, and then wanted to amplify that for others. And so many people, as I said, have had a very emotional response to the film and find the film experiential. They find it emotional and experiential. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. I was sitting there. I mean, I live on the East Coast now. I lived in LA, not far, I think, from where you probably shot this, which was in Laurel Canyon and the area. And we're all besieged at the moment with these just sort of freakish images of, the city on fire. And so I guess, what is captured is idyllic. And at the moment, it feels like a world away based upon where we are.
Right.
How do you juxtapose that, I guess, in terms of kind of what you've captured and what's going on at the moment? It's hard not to kind of get away from that, I guess, isn't it?
It's so true. And it's there's a collective grief, I think, about all of that, not only the immediate loss. I mean, I live in Australia. We are we have a lot of proximity to wildfires, both, physically and the experience of it. And these wildfires, or bushfires as we call them, they are a fact of life now. This isn't just an anomaly that might happen every so often. We are now in a season where this happens regularly. But I think when it happens, quote, the first time on a scale, I mean the first time, obviously, California's experienced wildfires frequently. But what's happening right now is not totally dissimilar to what happened in Australia 4 years ago in our Black Summer, where so much habitat loss, so much loss of species, acres and acres and acres of land and buildings wiped out. And I think that's the experience in Los Angeles at the moment. It's that absolute proximity and the scale of it. But, within a year, those green shoots were coming back through the blackened, charcoaled stumps, and there's always hope. And actually this time, and hopefully, in some really quite strange way that this film is releasing now, which is, in a way, thematically, couldn't be more appropriate for this time because it's a healing film.
It's true.
But there is an opportunity here for a collective rallying of our humanity. And I so hope for LA that is what happens. It's devastating to me when I see the political football being chucked around already, and I'm like, no, this is not a time. This is really, really not a time for that. Not because there can't be accountability, but because people are hurting, and you have to honor that. And you have to remember that Los Angeles isn't just a city full of people. It's in nature. We are in nature. We have to respect nature. We have to look at those patterns of wildfire and flood and migration patterns of animals. And we have to not screw that up, really. We live in an extraordinary place called Earth. And so if there is a moment to just take stock, albeit through this horrific experience, but to remember that and to then somehow work with that better, get rid of the eucalypts, put the wires underground, all of that good stuff that should be going on. Maybe this is that moment, but,
Yeah. Again, at the Q&A that I was at the IFC, someone asked this question, and you had talked about, of course, the question was, how is Terry? Is she okay? Right. Do we know about her house? And, of course, how are the hummingbirds? So I guess I have to imagine that you're going to be asked that quite a bit. So
I'm sure we will be. And the great news is that Terry is fine. She's doing well. She's actually in Portland at the moment, and the hummingbirds are, although the nesting sites in the hills could be very, very affected, they're not in breeding season right now. Breeding season is usually from February through to, they've all fledged by July. So, and they're fast flyers, man. So they want to survive. They want to get out of there as much as any other creature. So they would have made their way very, very quickly out of the Palisades and in these other spots where the fires have been burning. And as I say, there will be a loss of those nesting sites and also the flowering plants that they rely on. But hummingbirds are also insect feeders. They will be looking for those fruit flies and everything else that they feed on. So the thing is that there's almost an artificial landscape in Los Angeles for the hummingbirds with all the feeders, and they are actually going to be critical. So if you have a hummingbird feeder, put it up, They move around, and they're smart. They'll sort themselves out.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know about Terry, having lived in LA, the fact that there is literally a hotline and people call. There's another clip that we have, I guess, with Terry receiving a hummingbird with someone having brought this injured bird into her care.
See, now look, this is fascinating. Look at this. There are human hairs in this nest.
Really?
And it's a blonde.
It must be me.
This was in your yard.
Yeah, so
This is your hair.
I don't know how
It
they
is.
got my
It's
hair.
long blonde hair. That's what.
Yeah, there's no one else blonde.
No, they
who
would
lives
get
by
it
me.
out of. That's your hair.
Wow.
They would get it off of the dryer vent.
Oh, really? Oh.
That's your hair.
Wow.
So the mother was mining your hair for her
Oh my gosh.
nest. They're looking for spider webs too. You saved them, yeah. Oh, good babies.
Oh, I'm so happy that they're both gonna be okay.
They will. There's no doubt in my mind that they'll make it.
Oh, awesome.
Thanks to you.
Oh,
Without you, no.
without you.
Without us.
It's so lovely. Again, I guess the question really is was it look, just the story of her, that there is someone in the world who is focused on, this infinitely small bird the size of our little finger, and that she dedicates her entire life, almost, it seems 7 days a week, 24/7, during this time when I guess, what is it, May to July? Just that is interesting enough. But is there something, had you come in with the intention of trying to sort of find what that other note was, or was that something that you sort of left to chance, or to kind of, filmmaker magic, I guess?
Anyone who knows me knows that I don't leave very much to chance. I'm pretty rigorous. But it's true. I also, I think the world is a magic place. And, I think with this film, I was really, really interested in how we could tell a big story through a very small hero. And I don't mean Terry being a small character in the slightest, actually. I mean, of course, the hummingbirds. But Terry is really the central character. But I think with this film, I think all the films that I find myself drawn to, they become very involved experiences. They become often emotional stories. And I don't mean like people are like running out of the theater screaming, or they're, that uncontrollably crying. I just mean that I try and find something that speaks to the human experience in the stories that I tell. And so really, genuinely, I've made films about everything. I mean, the film I made before making this film was a film about a group, an entertainment group called The Wiggles, who are children's entertainers. And I don't know if any of the people watching or listening will know that group is still around, but they sure are. And there's a riotous joy in that film. And this film, Every Little Thing, is a very delicate film. It's a film that's almost made with gossamer in some respects. It's
feels like so.
It's a film that is really allowing the viewer to to have those ideas of what it means to be compassionate or quote unquote good, to be kind, it's monumental. Actually, we can't really ask for more of each other than to be kind. And we never thank, just the clip that you just played, without you, without us. It's just the substance of it. That's it. That is it. And yet it's obviously in this film presented in a really delicate way. So, I hope people find whatever they want to find in the film. It's not made to be one particular read. Hopefully it's made to have a lot of different takeaways, but, above all, shine a light on our humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt they will. So then I guess I want to ask you just for filmmaker questions. You made the film. You obviously did quite a few festivals because you have a bunch of laurels in your trailer, lovely trailer. But I guess the question is, how did you decide to do a theatrical run? I know you're working with Kino Lorber. They're such a great company, but how did you decide, and Dogwolf, I should mention Dogwolf, also a great company, but how did you decide to take this to theaters and why was that important to you, as opposed to perhaps trying to sort of find a stream?
I was reading the other day about brain synchronicity. I'm a documentarian. What I can say, my algorithms are really whacked out. I have a curiosity about the world. Brain synchronicity happens not just when people are intensely connected to one another, be that, siblings, twins, romantic relationships. Brain synchronicity can happen in a theater space when we share a piece of music or when we watch a piece of cinema. I think meaning that you actually come away with a more intense experience. I think for this project, it's a discipline to have the opportunity with this brilliant cinematography, this beautiful story, but to see that writ large. There's really nothing quite like seeing a bird that is this big on a 40-foot screen. It's really trippy, really. You can see how they descended from dinosaurs because they are pterodactyl-like. But the thing is that you want to allow the right time, and it's not a story that you can cut fast, and often actually if you cut fast, you actually lose something in the engagement. So we always knew that it was a theatrical offering because of the experience that we wanted to create in the storytelling. And it, as I said, has these layers of visuals. It has the incredible wildlife cinematography, which are meditative. The flowers, the flowers, this archival texture, which is really about memory and about the way that things can trigger memory and fractured memory in the case of trauma. And so there are so many ideas in the film, but they are presented hopefully cinematically and visually. So a lot of people have said that the story has really stayed with them, and that was a hope that the ideas in the film would stay with people. So working with Kino Lorber, it's absolutely brilliant. They are the masters at rolling out a film, and Dogwolf and Wild Bear, who are the production partners, and Tangled Bank HHMI have all come together, and everyone has from the beginning been involved in the aspiration for the film, which is to reach as many people as possible and to tell a hopeful, necessary story in times that are really troubled, and to introduce the world to this remarkable woman, Terry Masear, and the remarkable creatures that are amongst us in our backyards. Magical.
Yeah. No, it really does. I've always loved hummingbirds.
Good.
They do have a sort of a mystical, almost spirit-like quality. But there's a whole lot that I've learned about hummingbirds just by watching your film. What was the experience
for Terry watching the film, or has she watched the film? What was that
Yep.
like for her? And what happened, I guess?
So, yes, definitely Terry watched the film. The film was invited to compete at Sundance 2024. So we're almost full circle after a year of migrating this film. So Terry came with us to Sundance, but we had sent her the film prior to that. And interestingly enough, you're filming together. It's a very intense experience. And then you go away for a while and you're in the edit suite for a while. And I was a little bit like one of the hummingbirds that you see in the film. I'd papered the edit suite with all kinds of imagery and all kinds of mood inspiration. And Terry, we would FaceTime sometimes and she'd say, I want to be in the edit suite. That looks so fun. Because she's a writer. She's a storyteller. She's a very creative person in her thinking. And but it's a time, the edit is a time where you are really honing that story. And so she wasn't obviously very involved in the process. And we sent her the film, and it was, there was a real it's a nerve-wracking moment when you send your film to anybody, let alone people that you've filmed with, and
and they let you in so
and they
intimately,
let you in, and
into
they've
every
been
part of her
vulnerable,
life.
and she wanted to watch it on her own. And I was, again, Bettina and I, we were very nervous about that because, it's an emotional film, and it deals with Terry's relationships, family, and her husband. So we waited, and she called, and she just said, oh my God, she found it a very traumatic experience, but like a cleansing one. She said it was, I love the film, she said. And then, because actually we'd told her, if you get into Sundance, you have to have it as an embargoed period for a while, as people might know. And so you're sort of sitting on your hands, desperate to tell people. But we did share that with Terry, and she was like, what? Are you crazy? How did that get into Sundance? And then within 5 minutes, she's like, of course it got into Sundance. It's a brilliant film, So she really does love the film. And she will be in Los Angeles for some of the Q&As.
Oh, that's great, for Q&As.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That would be fun to hear her talk about, and also particularly now, obviously, just to get her thoughts about where things are and what she might be seeing, and what the work for her is ahead. They say that great films really start when you leave the theater, right? So in a way, because they live on, right? And,
I love that. I haven't heard that expression. That's brilliant.
Yeah, someone said that to me once, and this is a sort of emblematic of that. It really does kind of stay with you, and she stays with you. There's a sort of a simple wisdom, almost like a Fred Rogers kind of a quality about her, and she her perception of things which are so almost matter of fact, are just so profound, and kind of, knock you out. And so I found myself, I've watched it twice now. I watched it again, and I've definitely, played things back in my head about it. And we what we're doing with this show has really been really intent on trying to bring attention to films just like yours, which is essentially small films. I say small, not in subject or in scope of story. I just mean in terms of, you haven't come in with a Netflix marketing budget and or a Nat Geo, and you are coming in with a lot of firepower and all of the accolades and laurels and obviously the quality and now the reviews. But it is so hard to get heard through the noise. And so, yours is the kind of film that I just was so excited to talk to you, because it's the kind of film which I want to say, hey, you may not have heard about this, but you got to see this, and you got to see it. You got to see it in the theater. And it's I mean, you've done. Excuse me. I'm going to do that again. You've done a remarkable job of capturing someone in a way that is so. Again, as you say, like gossamer-like, and it floats, and you tell sort of an A, B, and then very deep C story that kind of washes over you as you go. Tell me, what is the plan? So you're going to open you've just opened in New York. Is it still playing in New York? It's opening in Los Angeles, I get imminently. We're going to try and time this to that. And then what happens with the future of the film?
That's a great question. Depending on when this goes out, yes, it will still be at the IFC Centre in New York. And I think so appreciate what you say about wanting to share the film and encourage people to get along, because hopefully it is that word of mouth that will encourage more cinemas to come online and program the movie. And the intensity of the response. I mean, it's played at many film festivals and every screening has been sold out. I mean, I'm actually in Palm Springs at the moment, just on the very, very final day of the Palm Springs International Film Festival. And we played it another time last night, and everyone stayed for the Q&A. The clapping was there, and I don't say that in a way that's like, oh yay us. I say that because it's
being received. It's being received. I mean, that's what you hope, right? I mean, it's wonderful for the accolade, but isn't it great that it connected with the audience? I get what you're saying.
Right, exactly, and you're absolutely right. It doesn't come with a Netflix marketing budget. And funnily enough, though. Speaking of those huge Hollywood blockbusters as well, Marvel and so forth, which, they dominate the marketing. People's attentions are, necessarily so. We can't go around receive every message. And so, the ones that get bombarded the most are the ones that we hear. So, we know when the Spider-Verse is playing, right? But we, there's a different kind of Spider-Verse in this one. But anyway, I digress. One of the best lines in one of these lovely reviews said that, let me back up, because I remember having this conversation with my editor when we started the post process, saying we really have to make these tiny, tiny, tiny moments feel huge. These are the climax moments. And there was such a great affirmation of that aspiration, because there was one review that said, honestly, the 1-inch jump that a bird makes is just like Marvel. And I was like, that is so
that's
great.
That's great. That. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
you pierced the veil.
That's it. So these layers, small but powerful, like we're working that metaphor everywhere.
That's great. That's just wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I really hope that people get to come find this wonderful film in Los Angeles when it plays, and really then every little thing is best on every little screen, and you should come see it, particularly if in this case you can also see the star of the film and then you, Sally, so you can really talk again more about the process and what's going on. But it's coming to theaters in Los Angeles, and hopefully will be in theaters for everyone near you, wherever you are across the United States.
I think so. I think also if people go to kinolorba.com, they can see there are lots of other cinemas online. I just don't have them at the tip of my
No, and that'll,
tip of
as
my
long
tongue.
as people can sort of know where to find it. So I'm sure, is there a everylittlething.com
There
address?
is a landing page to use all the flight expressions, and it allows you to put in where you live and finds the nearest cinema to you. So I believe that beyond Los Angeles there are others in the Midwest and up the coast, and there'll be a screening in Portland, and so I think there are lots of people out there with an appetite for this story. It's just about getting that word out, like you say, that the film is here.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you for taking this time. Thank you
Not
for
a
being here.
problem.
And thank you for this beautiful film.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thanks again for joining us on another episode of Inside the Art House. We'll see you next time.
Inside the Art House was produced by Miles McCreary, Thomas Cassetta, and Raphael Sparge, and our on-site producer is Noreen Dickerson, and filmed at the Laemmle Royal Theatre. The episode was edited by Gabriel Laemmle, show open edited by Rick Pratt, music by Isabel Angman and Gerardo Garcia Jr., graphics by Janet DeAngelis, marketing by Stephanie Peters and Matthew King. Find out more at InsideTheArtHouse.com.